Okay, first episode of the In Transition podcast is official. We're here.
Whoop,
Corey's
whoop.
here. I'm here. And of course, we thought the best way to get this kicked off was to lead by example and show a little vulnerability and share our own stories of transition.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to be the first to share.
Guinea
Um,
pig. Okay.
Corey's going to get to be the questioner or coach in this situation,
A
which
little
she's used to being a coach. So
totally used to it.
I think this is going to be amazing. And we're going to get to learn about each other in the process. So I think it's going to be fun.
You make a good time.
It's going to be a good time. Again, this is one story of transition. I could have picked, I don't know, one of thousands, it feels like at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with what's freshest for me right now. And the one that a lot of people in my life know the most about at this moment. And that is my transition away from my 11-year marriage to my husband.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to let Corey jump in and take the reins here.
So maybe first what I want to start with, because I know as we continue on our podcast journey, peeps are going to get to know us. They're going to know, who we are, what we do, what we stand for, which will be evident in, what we literally say, how we speak how we walk our talk and we talk our walk. But maybe tell our peeps a little bit about you. Who is Lauren?
Who is Lauren? Such a complicated question, right?
A lot of layers. It's an
A
onion.
lot of layers, and I'll try and keep this as simple as possible.
Okay.
Lauren is a multi-passionate. She's been up to lots of different things in her life, and I think I'm at a point now where, I mean, we've had this conversation multiple times, Corey, right? Where we've got zero fucks to give.
Fresh
Out of fucks.
the year of our Lord, 2023. I am fresh out of fucks to give.
Yeah, I mean, I spent so many years being someone that wasn't authentically me.
Yeah.
Doing things in my career that, yeah, I was good at, and I could have made my long-term career, but eventually got to a point where I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like my forever thing.
Yep.
Even in relationships, like we'll talk about tonight. It's like,
Yeah.
starting to question everything of like, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Why am I in this pattern? Is this actually serving me anymore?
Is it
Yeah.
bringing you joy? Yeah.
Breaking away from my labels, which I feel like as women, they define us so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can say like, yeah, I was a wife, a mother, an employee, I'm a feminist. Like you can go down the list. Like, but who is Lauren really?
Yeah.
A seeker, of knowledge, of connection.
Mhm.
I mean, I started realizing that connecting with women was really what was setting my soul on fire,
Mhm.
and was the thing that I felt like I was put on this planet to do.
Yeah.
I don't quite know exactly what that's going to evolve to. Do any of us, though?
But isn't that the cool thing about it?
Yeah. I get
Super
to
cool.
have these cool conversations with people like you and all the guests we bring on here. Like
Yeah.
that to me is beautiful. And where it goes and how that unfolds, I can't control it, but I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, I'll get into more of that.
Yeah.
I'll build on that when it's my turn to be on the hot seat.
Whoop, whoop.
So getting excited for that. So you said, you started to question things, like, who am I? Why am I doing this? What's my role? How does that, when did that happen in your marriage?
Ooh. Um, I honestly, if I think back on my marriage, it's
Mhm.
probably started happening within 2 to 3 years of me being
Oh,
married.
wow. Oh,
And, I just said, it was an 11-year marriage.
yeah.
Granted, we decided that we would split at the 10-year mark, which is an interesting time to split, right? Because I always imagined, and I don't know if anyone else listening that's married or been in a long-term relationship thinks this, but when you're in that long-term relationship, and I think you hit the 5-year mark or something, you're kind of like, we're good. Like we made it this far. Like we beat the odds.
Yeah.
And I think part of me, once I got to that point, it was like, okay, you know, Do I really want to throw away what I've built? I'm invested in this, clearly.
Yeah.
And it was scary to think of what was on the other side of that. And then hearing all the voices of, well, the grass isn't necessarily greener. But as it's all unfolding, I'm replaying everything, all the years of being in this marriage, and starting to think the signs were there such a long time ago. I just wasn't in a place to recognize them.
So you said something a few seconds ago, like, you knew you had a pretty good idea, or you first started getting an inkling that maybe into year 2 or year 3, that it was just like, I'm not sure about this. Mm-hmm. And that you guys, if I heard you correctly, you always agreed that you'd end it by the 10-year mark. Is that what you said?
No.
Okay.
We decided officially to end things at the 10-year mark.
Okay.
We're now at 11, and I'm not officially divorced, just for everyone that's listening. We're going through the process. We're no longer cohabitating, we're co-parenting, but we're now at year 11. So when I tell the story of like how long I've been in my marriage, I say, yeah, I've been in an 11-year marriage, but technically we called it at 10.
Yeah. Okay.
We actually celebrated our 11-year anniversary together. We had plans for our anniversary to go see Alicia Keys in concert.
I mean, I would sit with my soon-to-be ex-spouse for that.
Yeah. I mean, for that.
It's Alicia Keys.
He questioned it because he had bought the tickets. He's like, are we still doing this thing? And I was like, you know what? Things were amicable enough where I was like, yeah, we should do this. This is like a beautiful way to kind of go out and say, we love and respect each other enough to celebrate this moment, even though it's not where we thought we would be at this point in our marriage.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun.
I mean, that's cool for you guys to be able to do that. Are things still amicable?
Yes.
That's good.
It is. And it's actually, it kind of lit a subsequent passion inside of me going through this experience of wanting to help more women navigate breakups.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's such a stigma around the ending of either a long-term relationship or a marriage that it always seems to get nasty, or that's the only way things end. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. And I feel like it potentially could have gone that way at a certain point in my marriage. If I ended things earlier, I wasn't at the place I was at, and he wasn't in the place he was at.
Yeah.
Everything unfolded the way it needed to. Then we can get into some of that. But I had to kind of walk the journey the way it unfolded to get to the point of like, okay, it's a good time to call this. And here's why.
Did he agree with you? Who was the one that initiated that conversation?
I initiated it. Okay. He knew it was coming.
Okay.
And it was kind of one of those things where, when someone's like, we really need to talk. And your mind starts going,
like, what did I do? Oh my God, what's going on? Yeah, it's like,
oh shit. Like as soon as I said that, because we had already been having struggles, it's not like it came out of the blue.
Yeah.
When I said that to him, I was like, I was like, we should take a Friday off of work and talk. He's immediately like, okay, this is coming. She's gonna unload this on me. My marriage is over. So he's already in his mind thinking, this is about to go down.
Yeah.
We went on a hike because I'm really a fan of like walking and talking.
That could be like a Dateline episode beginning to happen, though, if they were
it could. And there was no cell service.
Where is Keith Morrison? Where are you, buddy?
We literally like went up into the mountains out of town, a place we'd like to go hiking. He's not a creeper like that though either. So I wasn't like thinking my life was at risk, even though I knew he probably knew what was going to happen up on the top of the mountain.
Oh gosh, okay.
I was not in any way thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to turn into a Dateline.
Not coming home.
No. I was like, if I didn't know that, like I had much bigger problems than
true. Very, very true.
Than I thought I did.
Yeah.
So we did this whole, like, let's walk and talk and let's just be real. Let's like lay it all out. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm thinking, where I'm at, why.
Okay.
And there were tears. There was a lot of admitting of things that hadn't been admitted to that point. And it ended on like a kind of high note. We came down the mountain, we had lunch together, we picked up our kid together. We had dinner with friends that night that didn't know that this had happened. We're really good
Friday?
at that.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like, how's your Friday?
Yeah. And they didn't know this whole time. I mean, my friend may listen to this episode and be like, you guys decided you were getting divorced that day? Yep.
And you met us for sushi hours later?
Mexican food, but yep.
Well, okay.
Yeah. I was like, and acted like everything was okay because, at that point, he wasn't ready to make it this big public thing. And I didn't want to press it either. It's like, when you feel ready, I did tell him though, I was like, pretty much everyone in my circle, my tight circles, knows that this is happening. I mean, they're not going to say anything.
Those are your people. Those are the people that you trust with any and everything. So yeah.
Well, yeah. And it's like, my girlfriends were my sounding board. My mom was my sounding board during that time. They weren't telling me what to do. They were just there. And I think that's a really important thing for women that are listening to this to know is like, have your people in your corner that you can go to.
Yeah.
Especially when you're going through that really hard shit where you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was really helpful.
Yeah. I have a friend that's, without getting too much into her business and putting it all out on the interwebs and on the podcast world, I have a friend that's in the middle of a divorce as well. And, I've had opinions as to when I thought it should be over. In a large part, that was just me seeing my friend hurt, seeing my friend on my couch crying and just like, you deserve so much better. You mean that much to me that I just want this for you. I want peace and happiness and rainbows and butterflies and everything. But I never once, I don't think ever said, just do it. It was like, you need to be that sounding board. And, and she admitted, she goes, I know that I know that you have opinions, but I respect and love you so much for never sharing them with me and just being my friend.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard though, right? And it's funny after the fact, I had a lot of my friends and family come forward and tell me, you know what? I never really thought he was your person. And I was like, excuse me?
Could you have told me that sooner?
Well, part of me, that was my initial thought was like, well, why didn't you say something? And they're like, well, would you have listened? And honestly, at that time, I got married when I was 30. So it's not like I got married in this big rush. Like I waited a while to get married. I wanted it to be like a one and done situation. I'm like, I don't want to get divorced. I don't want to get married again. Like I'm going to take my time. I was focused on my career before that. Yeah. So I don't know though, at that point, if someone had said, I'm not sure he's your person, I would have really heard it.
There's a we all know I love Mary J. Blige. There's a song that she has called Be Happy. And the main chorus is all I really want to do is to be happy. And she says this line, and don't think that I'm saying it, with respects to your relationship, that when you think you're in love, you only see what you want to see, and you only want to hear what you want to hear, because you're in this world of, this is my life, this is my marriage, this is my forever person. So if somebody's going to come and say anything contrary to that, oh, that's just nonsense. Stop it. That's trash. We're not friends anymore. I can't talk to you. Why aren't you supporting me? So no, I don't, not really, never having met your estranged husband and not really knowing all the ins and outs of it. I don't think anybody in that situation would have been like, it's blasphemy. Why would you say that?
Yeah.
It wouldn't, or if it would have fallen on deaf ears, and it could have caused a whole lot more unnecessary drama and conversations that didn't really need to be had. And first and foremost, you needed to be able to work through that yourself. And come to that conclusion. So, yeah. Yeah.
And that took a while, but I did come to that conclusion, even though parts of me knew, like I said, probably much earlier.
Is that like a running theme? Because I remember when my parents divorced, I I was like 12. And I remember my mom saying that she kind of knew about 4 or 5 years in, and they
Mhm.
were married for 17 years. And in my head, I'm kind of like, well, thanks for sticking around, because if you hadn't, wouldn't be on this earth. So
There was a
thanks,
reason.
thanks for that. But do you think that's a thing? Like, you kind of know maybe a few years into it that I'm not really sure about this, but I'm gonna stick it out and see what happens. Maybe
Yeah,
we made it. We made the 5 year mark. We made the 7 year mark.
exactly. Like I said, you start to hit some of those bigger milestones in the relationship, and you're kind of like, oh, we're good. Like
Yeah.
we're here, we made it. And honestly, if I told you the story of my relationship with my husband and how it evolved, you would
Mm-hmm.
be shocked that we stayed together as long as we did, based on how we came up in our marriage, like the
Mm-hmm.
things that transpired in the years, especially early on in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you lived the way we did and had the situations occur in your marriage that we did,
Mm-hmm.
most marriages probably wouldn't have survived it. Our counselors even told us this, which was the crazy thing. As we're going through couples counseling towards the end, they're like,
Uh-huh.
gonna be honest, kind of surprised that you guys have made it to this point.
Oh,
And
wow.
even more so that there's been no infidelity. None of us were either, we were never unfaithful. I mean, and people are like, well, do you think that's really true? And I was like, well, I can say with 100% certainty, I never was unfaithful to my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I know him well enough to know he's not that guy either.
Yeah.
He really wanted this to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say he fought hard for it, but he did fight for it.
Yeah.
He wanted it. He wanted to stay in the marriage. He just didn't know how to make it work. So, yeah, I mean, I think we know women, we're intuitive. We
Yeah.
know when things aren't right, but that that idea of like, oh, I've made it, or like, this is my favorite one. It's not that bad. It could be worse. So and so isn't happy in their marriage. Ours isn't any worse than that. Like you start comparing a little bit.
Yeah.
And I started going, well, like, do I know anyone that's in a really like happy, successful marriage?
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess maybe this is as good as it gets. Those were all the thoughts I would have.
Wow. Okay.
So I stayed.
I'm sure that there was a large part of you that stayed also because you guys have a child together.
Yes, I will say having a child definitely complicated my
Mm-hmm.
feelings around staying in the marriage.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I'm a child of divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And, you start playing those statistics in your head a little bit too of like, oh, my parents were divorced. So my chances of getting divorced were like, what, 50% or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of take all of that stuff with a grain of salt. Like, we're all adults
Mm-hmm.
capable of making adult decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get married when I got married. I didn't have cold feet around the wedding. Like, I
Okay.
legitimately thought he was my person.
Okay.
Did I know who I was at that time? Very debatable.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's part of the problem. And I think that's a lot of the problem that maybe us women get into,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we get married in our 20s. I mean, like I said, I was 30. So I would have thought I knew myself pretty well at this point.
Yeah.
But honestly, I had never done the work to fully understand who I was, even at that point. It
Do you
wasn't until way later.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, it sounds like a lot of the work you did about self-discovery and just like meeting Lauren was done in the midst of your marriage.
Yes.
So obviously that's almost like just laying the red carpet for, as you're changing, the person that you were when you said I do is it's there's a very good chance that she just no longer exists.
Yeah.
So
But
it's
try
like,
telling a man that as it's happening.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
really, and I mean, I couldn't explain it in any other way. And I
yeah.
think at one point I commented to my husband that in the process of finding myself, I lost him
Oh, wow.
because it didn't fit. I didn't see how we fit. And then I
Yeah.
started questioning the whole thing. I was like, did we ever fit?
Ooh.
And I mean, it sounds harsh and it sounds bad. And I mean, I think these are all the things he's now at this point contemplated too. Like, was she ever really my person? There
Yeah.
were things about me that I'm sure he was very attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
I was different. Same reason I was attracted to him. At that point in my life, he was different
Okay.
than everyone I had been with prior to that. At least in my mind, I was like, this is like a nice guy. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, Corey, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
do nice guys.
Yeah, me neither.
I no.
Yeah.
Every girl likes a bad boy.
Every girl likes a bad boy.
Yes.
Right here. Hi.
I was like, you want to be the biggest asshole ever to me? Sign me up.
Let's date. Let's
Yeah.
let's cohabitate. Let's get a dog.
You want to hit on my mom when you go hang out with my mom?
Wow.
Sure.
Oh, please tell me that didn't happen. Did it?
Did at least once.
Wow.
And my mom's a foxy lady.
She said foxy lady. I haven't heard that in forever.
Yeah. So, I mean, we used to get, I mean, it was so funny being around my mom when we were younger, in particular,
Yeah.
where guys would hit on my mom. I mean, not like guys my age, but older guys. And they'd be like, is that your sister?
Come on. You have a better
Like,
one than that.
yeah.
Buddy. Come on.
But I mean, I got used to that. And I mean, even with my dad looks pretty good for his age too. And I would go out with my dad and people would think we were dating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd be like, oh God.
God.
And he'd be mortified and be like, this is my daughter.
This is my child.
Yeah. So that's the gene pool I come from. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I was used to the assholes and the guys that would like hit on my mom kind of thing. I'd be like, whatever. Wow. But John came along and it was different. I was like, this guy's in touch with his feelings. He's emotional. He says what he feels and he can express like real feelings I hadn't seen a man do like ever in a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the hardest part was like in retrospect, as I was going back through our journey together, and what I mistook for vulnerability in him was actually just him showing affection. So I don't know if anyone else will be able to relate to this, but like some men are really, really good at showing affection to women, meaning showering you with compliments, buttering you up, like, oh, you're like the most beautiful woman, or like, oh, you say the most incredible things, or you're so smart. Like, yeah, all the things. That was John.
Okay.
And to me, that was like intoxicating because I was used to being with the guys that like basically treated me like trash.
Yeah.
Yet I still wanted to be with them.
Yeah.
So John comes along and part of me, like the skeptic part of me was like, nope, this ain't for real.
She's going to fall. Just waiting.
Yeah,
just
I'm waiting.
For it.
Yeah. I think the first thing I told my mom after our first date, because, you know, mom's got to know how'd the first date go.
Absolutely.
And by the way, fun fact, we were set up on a blind date. I married a blind date.
It does work. What I was going to say, it does work, guys. Kind of.
Well, okay. And like, I'm not a blind date person. I think I'd been on.
Had you ever?
I had been on one when I was like 18.
Oh God.
So this is like 10 years later. Oh, wow. I think the only reason I said yes to this was because I had gotten out of a string of like shitty relationships. And I was at a point where I was like, what do I got to lose?
Free meal.
Yeah. And I'm like, I talked to him on the phone before I even met him. And we had a really great conversation. We talked for hours. He got to hear me talk with this super sexy, raspy voice because I had a cold the first time we talked. I was like, I don't even sound like this normally, but if you're into this,
just to let you know,
don't get used to it. I don't sound this sexy or like a phone sex operator normally. So, yeah, I mean, we just had a great conversation. We planned to meet. We had dinner. We closed down the restaurant. Like,
oh, wow.
We talked.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this guy's legit. Like, and he's asking me questions. How many of us have been on dates where guys did not ask us one question? There was no interest. They just want to talk about themselves. So for me, this was like a breath of fresh air. But at the same time, I was questioning it because I was so used to the opposite. I was like,
Yeah.
this can't be for real.
Yeah.
Let me give it a little time, and his true colors will show. And
His representative is going to get tired of showing up.
exactly. I'm
Yep.
like, this is exhausting. Like, he's going to get exhausted. His true colors will show. The really cool thing is when I met him, we had one date and I immediately went on vacation, like a day or two after the first date. So there was no chance for like an immediate second date.
That's kind of cool though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But like we were both really excited to have another date. And I remember him talking about that, like that I had to wait like a week for you to get back from this vacation and like being so excited for you to come back because I wanted to have
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of cool. The courtship was fast.
Yeah, like so I was like, how much time passed between your first date and saying I do?
So we were together 2 years before we got married. We got engaged, I think, around 18 months.
Okay.
But he was basically living with me within 3 months.
Oh, whoa, that did escalate quickly.
Yes. Did escalate quickly.
That was aggressive. Okay.
No, and it like I look back on that time, it was like a super fun time in my life as far as like me feeling very independent. It was the first time I lived completely alone. No roommate, my own apartment in Laguna Beach. Like, does it get better than that?
No, it really doesn't. It truly, truly does not.
No, I like lived in this beach cottage in Laguna Beach, a block away from the beach. There's a beach there called Thousand Steps. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's on the south side of town. And it's not 1,000 steps, but it feels like it when you're walking down to the beach. You know, it's like a cliff face.
Oh my God, I think I went there.
And the steps are really short, and people literally go to this beach to work out, like to go up and down the steps.
I think my cousin and I were there.
Backpack with weights in it and stuff like that.
Yeah, we saw a couple. I'm like, you're doing too much, bro. Calm down.
That was my beach. Like I would literally just cross the street. I'd cross PCH, go down the steps. Like it was so cool. And for a hot minute, one of my best friends lived above me. We literally had like a Melrose Place thing going on.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
But that didn't last very long. But like when I first moved in, that was my in to where I lived. I knew her. Her neighbor moved out. She's like, I bet you can get this place. Timing worked out. But then she moved like 3 months later. So we had like a
you had a blip in time.
You had a blip.
You had a Melrose blip.
But then I met John.
Okay, so it just kind of...
And it was like all was over. Like he was my person and he was around all the time. And he was renting a room at the time. So I had my own place. It just made sense. He just started crashing there.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's how it all started. Like it escalated quickly. I think we both knew pretty early on, like, yeah, this is going somewhere.
Yeah, this has some teeth. Let's do this. Okay.
Let's not waste any time.
Why? We're not getting any younger. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
You find your person, you know.
Yeah, and then John was a doctor, but he hadn't completed residency yet.
Okay.
His plan was to enroll in a program like the year we met. So there was kind of all these caveats around being with him that he was very upfront about. Like, I'm probably going to have to move somewhere to go to residency.
Okay.
There's really and for people who don't know anything about being with a doctor or residency and like what that entails, like it's a matching process. They interview, they go where they match.
Yep.
You cross your fingers, you go somewhere you want to live.
Yeah.
So we had to go through this whole process together. He's like, I'm going to start applying. Where are some places you'd be willing to move? And I'd lived in California basically my whole life.
Yeah.
To this point.
Yeah.
I'm ready to uproot my life for this guy.
Whoa. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's serious.
Yeah.
So we start looking at the list. And there were certain ones where I was like, rather not go there, rather not go there. Please not Kansas. Please not Iowa. Like, all these negotiations were happening. So when push came to shove, we were crossing our fingers for California, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be in California.
Yep.
Like the most competitive state maybe other than like New York and some of the other really big states to like get into residency programs. So if you're not like the top of the list, best candidate, the chances that you match there,
you're not going to get where you really, really want to be at.
Or if you know someone, because I mean, let's be honest, you can use your connections.
You absolutely can.
Somewhat. But he had gone to medical school in Texas.
Okay.
He's an Aggie. He went to A&M.
Okay.
So he knew in the back of his mind, Texas would be a sure thing. If I said that was my top choice and that's where I want to be, they would probably take me.
Okay.
Because he had relationships with the doctors there and the people running the program. So when we started getting the feeling like California wasn't going to be in the cards, Texas was it.
So you moved to Texas.
We moved to Texas.
And you were there for how long?
3 years.
Where in Texas?
So I like to say Austin because that sounds really cool, right? Austin's like a pretty fun place.
This is pretty legit. Okay.
Austin's pretty legit. And this was like, what, 10 years ago? Before Austin was really cool.
It was really cool. Okay.
So we were like ahead of the curve as far as the coolness factor. We lived outside of Austin in a suburb of Austin. So
you lived in Austin. It's fine.
I mean, close enough. It's a suburb of Austin. It was pretty close to drive into the city.
Okay.
His hospital was like an hour out of Austin. So this was a negotiation.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of different things we could talk about as far as this, but like this is where things started getting complicated with us. Okay. So to make a short story out of a long story, when we went to Texas, I thought I was going to have to get a new job. I had a really good job in California. I legit quit. Like I went to my boss who I had a really good relationship with and was like, I'm moving to Texas. Guess, this is going to have to be it. I'm going to have to find a new job. And he's like, does this have to be it? And I'm like, well, you tell me. I was like, how is this going to work? He's like, what if we could make something work? So, you mean, this is way before COVID when remote work now has become the thing. I started working remote.
Oh my goodness.
Like a decade ago.
Ooh.
It's like, we can
pioneer. Look at you.
Well, and you know what was even better? Texas doesn't have employment tax, income tax.
I didn't know that.
So I got a raise moving to Texas.
And worked remote.
Oh,
wow. Okay.
So, I mean, it was a pretty sweet deal. The only bad side was I was going to be traveling every 2 weeks.
You had to come back to California?
I would stay in California for 2 weeks and I would stay in Texas for 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see where the complications start. Okay.
This is 3 years in Texas.
Doing this back and forth.
Yes.
Ooh.
So I got a lot of JetBlue miles.
Okay.
Flying every 2 weeks out of Austin, going back to Long Beach, to Orange County. And I did that for 3 years.
Ooh.
We were not engaged when we moved to Texas. We weren't married. We hadn't gotten engaged yet. We were just together. I think the first year we were there, we got engaged.
Okay.
And he had this really planned out, like romantic plan for the engagement that everyone knew about but me.
Well, obviously.
So he did a really good job. The only thing he didn't do a good job about was hiding the fact that he was probably going to propose. And how does Lauren know this? We went on a trip to Mexico and he's asking me to try on the ring sizer. I mean, he could have gone into my jewelry box and like found my ring.
He could have just grabbed a ring and just like, okay, it needs to be this size. Okay.
So, I mean, it wasn't exactly covert.
Yeah.
But I didn't know when he was going to do it. So he surprised me.
Maybe it was that. Maybe it's like he didn't really have so much care that you knew it was coming, but more so you didn't know when it was coming.
I didn't know when. And I want to say it was like a couple months after the Mexico trip where I was trying on ring sizes. He had coordinated this whole thing to show up in California while I was on a business trip.
Okay.
At the spot where we met for our first date.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he had gotten my boss involved in all of this, and it'd be really funny to hear the story from my boss's perspective. But he basically convinced my boss to tell me we were meeting a client for drinks in downtown Laguna.
Okay.
And like the story was legit. I was like, okay, yeah, we were meeting with a lot of clients
Believable.
at that point. Like it was believable.
Yeah.
So my boss makes up this like elaborate story about how he's going to go find parking. I don't think parking was bad on this particular day, but like I'm still not with it. I'm not thinking anything unusual is happening. I'm like, okay, I'll go meet with the client.
Yeah.
Meet up with me, when you find parking.
Yeah.
He legit disappears.
Did you
John
ever?
is there waiting.
Okay.
He's on the curb, and I'm like,
Okay.
hi.
And you had no clue he was flying in.
No,
Okay.
no. But now like it's all,
You're starting
I'm
to put
piecing it together. I was like,
yeah.
I think I know what's happening here.
Yeah.
He's taking me to the spot we met on our first date. And it was like in front of this bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
We met in front of this bar. We didn't actually go into this bar, but it was like this very nostalgic thing where he's like, I'm going to propose like at the spot where we first met.
Like the literal spot
The
where you
literal spot.
first met. Wow. Okay. Okay.
So I think what happened is we went in to get a drink,
Mm-hmm.
and he hadn't proposed yet,
Mm-hmm.
but there was like a drunk woman sitting at the bar. The
Mm-hmm.
Marine Room in Laguna Beach, if you ever want to go sit with the drunkards, like early afternoon.
It's time to go.
Yep. She's like, you're not going to propose, are you? Because he's got a flower, and like, he probably looks nervous. Like, it was a funny story. And it was a story we told many times after that. Because it's like, yeah, we had the drunk lady at the bar kind of ruined
You ruined the whole moment.
she ruined the moment a little bit, but it wasn't ruined. He took me outside and did the actual proposal. I could not tell you for the life of me what words he said. And I think probably any woman who's been proposed to,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a blur.
Yeah.
If any woman listening to this can remember how they were proposed to, what words were said to them, I'd love to hear.
Please tell us.
Yeah, please tell us,
You can
because
be our guest. Be our guest.
yeah, I'm like, even like wedding vows, I was like, I don't really remember.
Really?
I mean, we did kind of traditional vows.
Okay.
So I picked a poem, like as part of the reading. I don't know. That's a different story. But yeah, he proposed. 6 months later, we were married.
Still in Texas.
Still living in Texas.
Oh, wow.
Still traveling every 2 weeks. We did take a honeymoon, though, while he was in residency, which...
That's rare.
Yeah, I don't know how we pulled that one off, but we did take a honeymoon. And I want to say we were in Texas for like another year and a half before we moved again to Boston. So we went from Austin to Boston. And that was for fellowship.
Okay.
So
But did fellowship kind of work the same way that residency works? Like you go wherever,
the
okay.
exact same way. And the crazy thing about fellowship and residency, or that transition, the transition between the two, is that you literally have no time between the two.
Seriously.
Residency ends on June 30th. Fellowship begins July 1st. So do that logistically in your head.
That's...
And you're moving states.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, hey, you're done. You're coming here. We'll see you in Boston tomorrow.
Yep.
But figure out how you're going to make that happen.
Yep.
Whoa. Okay.
So basically, all residents know this about being a resident. Like, you got to kind of build this into the experience. If you know you're going to be a fellow, you're probably saving up vacation so you can take time off at the end of residency.
In between.
So you can move, because the chances are that you stay in the same hospital for fellowship is pretty slim.
Okay.
It does happen, but a lot of times they don't even have the program you're going to fellowship for.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
So he was interviewing, and that's the other thing. Like, he's having to interview while he's in residency. And for anyone who knows anything about residency, there's a reason it's called residency.
You live there.
They basically live at the hospital.
So
it's gotten way better than it used to be.
how is he doing that? Like, okay, I'm in residency, but I'm also interviewing for fellowships.
Yep.
Because were the interviews in the places where the fellowships were being offered, or were they virtual?
No, they had to be there in person.
Oh God.
I bet you now, well, especially with COVID, like they had to go the virtual route. And I was like, why would you not just go virtual and like save them the headache? One, they're not making a lot of money as residents and they have to pay.
They have to pay for the
They have to
travel.
pay their own way.
Yeah.
The programs aren't paying for them to travel and interview. So it's like you're racking up this debt. He's having to interview in multiple places. I think he had to fly to like 5 different cities because he was applying to all these different programs.
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, the
Okay.
more places you apply, the better chance you have of
But
matching
still,
somewhere.
but then the trade-off to that is the more places you apply, the more places you have to go travel to.
Exactly.
Oh goodness.
So
Okay.
he's doing all of this while residency's happening.
Mhm.
I'm traveling. Like it's this whole chaotic thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell the whole story of this, but he matches to Boston, which was his first choice for fellowship.
Okay.
It's a Harvard affiliated program. Like it's basically the best of the best for what he wanted to do. So,
Okay.
I mean, that was a really good moment. Like
That's
I
good for
was
him.
super
Yeah.
proud of him. He worked really hard to get there.
Yeah.
Um, it was a year-long program. So we're like,
So,
okay, one more year. Now I'm flying from Boston to California.
oh, you were still doing that.
Yes.
It's a longer flight. It's a
Yep.
hell of a longer
And
flight.
now it's West Coast, East Coast time
Mhm.
difference.
Mhm.
So when my day is wrapping up, he's kind of really winding down.
Yeah.
So talking and connecting while I was in California was not easy.
Mm.
And we started to get, I mean, we were both very independent, but I
Mhm.
think the independence picked up a notch from there once
Yeah.
Boston happened, where it's like, oh, you're living your life, I'm over here living mine.
I'll
And
see
then
you in 2
when,
weeks.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then when I'm in Boston, we're trying to do things together, but let's face it, you're super busy. And my health took a rapid turn for the worst when I was living in Boston. And
Mm.
that's like a whole other story.
Sorry. Okay.
Um, maybe I'll talk about it one day.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of health related stuff going on with me, which in hindsight was probably lots of stress.
Yeah.
What I was dealing with, not only in the marriage, but like the travel, all of the things.
I mean, you had been doing that for 3 years
4 years.
just in
4 years.
Texas, 3 years in Texas, and then
Yep.
one extra year in Boston. So cool. You were able to keep your job, and your boss worked something out that made that possible. But the toll it took ultimately,
Yeah.
that racks up.
Yep. And I mean, you've heard the theory that the body keeps score
Hmm.
when it comes to like stress and trauma.
Totally does. It absolutely does.
It wasn't registering with me in the moment.
Hmm.
And there was lots of things that contributed, I think, to what I was experiencing, which I won't talk about in this episode, but something was seriously wrong.
Yeah.
And something needed to shift.
Yeah. Yeah.